Warriors, The Broken Code, Lost Stars by Aaron Hunter. Prologue. From a vast indigo sky, a warrior of StarClan gazed down at the lake and the clan territories clusters around it. A half moon floated in the darkness, its lights turning the surface of the water to silver and glittering on the snow-covered land. The branches of the tree dipped gently under the weight of snow. The starry warrior spotted movement at the edge of the tree where forest gave way to the steep slopes of the moor. Two tiny figures toiled upward, their shapes dark against the icy brightness. In the lead was a brown Tom with white splotches, while close behind him a smaller Tom, a gray tabby with darker stripes, was struggling to make headway, his belly fur brushing the snow. They were both unaware of being observed. "Petalshine," the StarClan warrior mumbled, recognizing a ShadowClan medicine cat. "And there's his apprentice, Shadowpaw. They must be on their way to the moon pool for the half-moon meeting." The spirit cat focused an intense gaze on the tabby apprentice, nodding appreciatively at his determination to keep up with his mentor, and how his brown eyes shone with anticipation at the coming meeting, when he would share dreams with the StarClan. "There's no cat like you in all the 5 clans, Shadowpaw," the warrior continued. "Now great events are coming, and the clans will experience far-reaching challenges. And you, young apprentice, you will have an important part to play." The StarClan spirit went on watching as the 2 medicine cats trudged on upward to the moonland slope, their figures slowly dwindling in the distance until they crossed the crest of the hill and vanished. "Yes," the word was breathed out on a sigh of satisfaction. "Shadowpaw, your name will be remembered for as long as the clans survive." Chapter 1. Shadowpaw craned his neck over his back, straining to groom the hard-to-reach spot at the base of his tail. He had just managed to give his fur a few vigorous licks when he heard paw steps approaching. He looked up to see his father, Tigerstar, and his mother, Dovewing, their pelts brushing as they gazed down at him with pride and joy shining in their eyes. "What is it?" he asked, sitting up and giving his pelt a shake. "We just came to see you off," Tigerstar responded, while Dovewing gave his son's ears a quick, affectionate lick. Shadowpaw's fur prickled with embarrassment. "Like I haven't been to the moon pool before," he thought. "They're still treating me as if I'm a kid in the nursery." He was sure that his parents hadn't made such a fuss when his littermates, Pouncestep and Lightleaf, had been warrior apprentices. "I guess it's because I'm going to be a medicine cat, or maybe because of the seizures he had since he was a kid." He knew his parents were still worried about him, even though it had been a while since his last upsetting vision. They're probably hoping that while some training from the other medicine cats, I'll learn to control my visions once and for all. That can be normal. Shadowpaw wanted that too. "The snow must be really deep on the moors," Dovewing mewed. "Make sure you watch where you're putting your paws." Shadowpaw wriggled his shoulders, praying that none of his clanmates were listening. "I will," he promised, glancing toward the medicine cat's den in hope at the sight, seeing his mentor, Petalshine, emerge. But there's no sign of him yet. To relieve his relief, Tigerstar gave Dovewing a nudge, and they both moved on toward the clan leader's den. Shadowpaw rubbed one paw hastily across his face and bounded across the camp to see what was keeping Petalshine. Intent on finding his mentor, Shadowpaw barely noticed the patrol trekking toward the fresh kill pile, prey dangling from their jaws. He skidded to a halt just in time to avoid colliding with Cloverfoot, the clan deputy. "Shadowpaw!" she exclaimed around the shrew she was carrying. "You nearly knocked me off my paws." "Sorry, Cloverfoot," Shadowpaw mewed, dipping his head respectfully. Cloverfoot let out a snort, half annoyed, half amused. "Apprentices." Shadowpaw tried to hide his irritation. He was apprentice, yes, but an old one. Medicine Cat's apprentices' training lasted longer than warriors. His littermates were full warriors already, but he knew his parents wouldn't want him to respect the devotee. Cloverfoot pattered on, followed by Strikestone and Yarrowleaf and Blazefire. Though they were all carrying prey, they had only 1 or 2 pieces each, and what little they had managed to catch was an undersized and scrawny. I can't remember a leaf bear as cold as this, Yarrowleaf complained as she dropped a blackbird on the fresh kill pile. Strikestone nodded, shivering as he fluffed out his brown tabby pelt. No wonder there's no prey. They're all hiding down in their holes, and I can't blame them. As Shadowpaw moved on, out of earshot, he couldn't help noticing how pitifully small the fresh kill pile was, and he tried to ignore his own growling belly. He could hardly remember his first leaf bear, where he had been a tiny kit, so he didn't know if the older cats were right and the weather was unusually cold. I only know if I don't like it, he grumbled to himself as he picked his way through an icy sludge that covered the ground of the camp. My paws are so cold, I think they're going to drop off. I cannot wait for new leaf. Puddleshine ducked out of the entrance to the medicine cat's den as Shadowpaw approached. Good, you're ready, he meowed. We'd better hurry, or we'll be late. As he led the way toward the camp entrance, he added, I've been checking our herb stores, and they've been getting dangerously low. We could search for more on the way back, Shadowpaw suggested, his medicine cat duties driving out his thoughts of cold and hunger. He's always enjoyed working with Puddleshine to find, sort, and store the herbs. Treating cats with the herbs made him feel calm and in control, the opposite of how he felt during his seizures and the accompanying visions. We can try, Puddleshine sighed, but what isn't frostbitten will be covered in snow. He glanced over his shoulder. Shadowpaw and the 2 cats headed out into the forest. This is turning out to be a really bad leaf bear, and isn't over yet, not by a long way. Excitement tingled up through Shadowpaw from ear to tail tip as he scrambled up the rocky slope toward the line of bushes that surrounded the Moonpool Hollow. His worries over his seizures and the bitter leaf bear faded. Every hair on his pelt was bristling with anticipation of his meeting with the other medicine cats, and most of all with StarClan. He may not be a full medicine cat yet, and he may not be fully in control of his visions, but he will still get to meet with his warrior ancestors. And from the rest of the medicine cats, he would find out what was going on in the other clans. Standing at the top of the slope, waiting for Puddleshine to push his way through the bushes, Shadowpaw reflected on the last few moons. Things had been tense in ShadowClan as every cat settled into their new boundaries and grew used to sharing a border with SkyClan. Not long ago, SkyClan had lived separately from the other clans in a far-flung territory in a gorge. But StarClan had called SkyClan back to join the other clans by the lake, because the clans were stronger when all 5 were united. Still, SkyClan needed its own territory, which had meant new borders for everyone, and had taken time for the other clans to accept them. Shadowpaw was relieved as the things seemed more peaceful now. The brutally cold leaf bear had given all the clans more to worry about than quarreling with one another. They're even beginning to rely on the others, especially in sharing the herbs when the cold weather had damaged so many of the plants they needed. Shadowpaw felt proud they were all getting along, instead of battling one another for every piece of prey. That wasn't a great start to Tiger Star's leadership. I'm glad it's over now. I'm going to stand out there all night. At the sound of Puddleshine's voice from the other side of the bushes, Shadowpaw dived among the branches, wincing as sharp twigs scraped along his pelt, and thrust himself out onto the ledge above the moonpool. Opposite him, halfway up the rocky wall of the hollow, a trickle of water bubbled out from between 2 moss-covered boulders. The water fell down into the pool below, with a fitful glimmer as if the stars themselves were trapped inside it. The rippling surface of the pool shone silver with reflected moonlight. Shadowpaw wanted to leap into the air with excitement as being back at the moonpool, but he fought to hold on to some self-control. as he padded down the spiral path to the water edge with all the dignity expected of a medicine cat. All welled up inside him as he felt his paws slip into the hollows made by cats countless seasons before. Who were they? Where did they go? He wondered. The two ThunderClan medicine cats were already sitting beside the pool. Shadowpaw guessed it. It was too cold to wait outside for everyone to arrive, as the medicine cats usually did. Alderheart was thoughtfully grooming his chest fur while Jay Feather's tail tip twitched back and forth in irritation. He turned his blind blue gaze on Puddleshine and Shadowpaw as they reached the bottom of the hollow. You took your time, he snapped. We are wasting moonlight. Shadowpaw realized that Crystalflight of WindClan and Mothwing and Willowshine, the two RiverClan medicine, were sitting just beyond the two from ThunderClan. The shadow of a rock had hidden them from him until now. Nice to see you too, Jay Feather, Puddleshine replied mildly. I'm sorry if we're late, but I don't see Frecklewish or Fidgetflake either. Jay Feather gave a disdainful sniff. They're not here soon? Starve without them. Would Jay Feather really do that? Shadowpaw was still staring at the ThunderClan medicine cat, wondering, and a rustle from the top of the slope put him on alert. Looking up, he saw Frecklewish, pushing her way through the bushes, followed closely by Fidgetflake. At last, Jay Feather hissed. He's in a mood, Shadowpaw thought, then added to himself, with a flicker of amusement, nothing new there then. As the two SkyClan medicine cats padded down the slope, Shadowpaw noticed how thin and weary they both looked. For a heartbeat, he wondered if there was anything wrong in the SkyClan. Then he realized that he and the rest of the medicine cats looked just as skinny and just as worn out by the trials of Leaf Bear. Frecklewish dipped her head to her fellow medicine cats, and then she joined them beside the pool. Greetings, she mewed, her fairly clear in her voice. How is this parade running in your clans? For a moment, no cat replied, and Shadowpaw could sense their uneasiness. None of them wants to admit their clan is having problems. Shadowpaw was surprised when Puddleshine, who was normally so pensive, was the first to speak up. Maybe the cold had banished his mentor's reserve and enabled him to be honest. The hunting is very poor in ShadowClan, he replied. ShadowClan felt a twinge of alarm of how discouraged his mentor sounded. If the freezing cold goes on much longer, I don't know what we'll do. They remained medicine cats exchanged glances of relief as they were glad to learn that their clan was the only one suffering. Willowshine nodded in agreement. Many RiverClan cats are getting sick because it's so cold. And ThunderClan too, Alderheart murmured. We're running out of herbs, Fidgetflake added with a twitch of his whiskers, and the few we have left are shriveled and useless. Frecklewish gave his clanmate a sympathetic gaze. I heard some of the younger warriors joking about running off to be kitty pets, she mewed. No cat had better say that in my hearing. Jay Feather drew his lips back in the beginning of a snarl, or they'll wish they hadn't. Keep your fur on, Jay Feather, Frecklewish responded. It was only a joke. All SkyClan cats are loyal to their clan. Jay Feather's only reply was an irritated flick of his ears. I don't suppose any have spare supplies of catmint, Crystalflight asked hesitantly. The clumps that grow in WindClan are all blackened by frost. We won't have any more until New Leaf. Most of the cats shook their heads except for Willowshine, who rested his tail encouragingly on Crystalflight's shoulder. RiverClan can help, she promised. There's catmint growing in the tall gardens near our border. It's more sheltered there. Thanks, Willowshine. Crystalflight's voice was unsteady. There's white cough in the WindClan camp, and without catmint, I'm terrified it is going to turn into green cough. Meet me by the border tomorrow at sun high, Willowshine mewed. I'll show you where the catmint grows. This is all well and good, Jay Feather snorted. Every cat getting along, but let's not forget why we're here. I'm much more interested in what StarClan has to say. Shall we begin? He paced at the edge of the moon pool and stretched out one forepaw to touch the surface, only to draw his paw back with a gasp of surprise. "What's wrong?" Puddleshine asked. One by one, the medicine cats cautiously approached the moon pool's surface. Shadowpaw sniffed the moon pool curiously, then reached out a tentative paw. He was stunned when he hit something solid. What is in the stars? Instead of water, it had touched ice, so thin that it gave way under the pressure of his pad, the splinters bobbing at the water's edge. "The moon pool is beginning to freeze," Crystalflight mewed when Shadowpaw licked the icy water from his paw. "That felt really weird." "Well, that proves it. The cold is worse than usual," Jayfeather grumbled. "Has it never happened before?" Fidgetflake asked, his eyes wide. "I can't recall it happening before," Mothwing replied in an even voice. "There has been ice in the moon pool from time to time, but I don't remember freezing it all the way through." "Well, never mind. It's time to share dreams with StarClan," Jayfeather announced abruptly. "Maybe they can tell us how long we have to suffer this bitter cold. And maybe we'll be able to speak with Leafpool," Willowshine added, her voice soft with grief. Shadowpaw had hardly known the ThunderClan medicine cat, but he had heard stories about her, and he knew how much every cat in the forest admired her. Even though ThunderClan had 2 other medicine cats, they must be feeling the loss of Leafpool as if a badger had torn away one of their limbs. They noticed that Jayfeather had closed his eyes, as if he was struggling with desperate pain, and he remembered that Leafpool had been Jayfeather's mother as well as his mentor. Suddenly, Shadowpaw could forgive all Jayfeather's earlier gruffiness. Dovewing can be really embarrassing at times, treating him still as a kid, but I can't imagine how much it would hurt to lose her. Alderheart drew closer to his clanmate. "She still watches us over from StarClan." "I know," Shadowpaw could hardly hear Jayfeather's low voice respond. "But even for medicine cats, it's not the same." Huddling together for warmth, the 9 medicine cats struck their necks over the moon pool and lowered their heads to touch their noses to the surface. Shadowpaw's breathing grew rapid from excitement. With a couple of heartbeats, he knew he would find himself transported into the StarClan. Either that, or the StarClan warriors would leave their territory and come to meet with the living cats at the moon pool. Instead, there's only silence. Though as the moments crawled by, Shadowpaw heard a confused clamor of cats' voices, faint as if coming from an immense distance. He couldn't make out what the cats were trying to say, or even if there were coherent words in their cries. Alarmed, Shadowpaw looked up to find the cloudy images in the sky, like scraps of softly glowing mist. For a few heartbeats, each of the scraps were almost solidifying to the form of a cat, then fade, then dissolve again into a shapeless blur. Icy fear flooded over Shadowpaw as he pressed himself closer to Puddleshine's side. Fighting back panic, he tried to tell himself that he was being stupid. "I hadn't been to the moon pool as many times as the others," he told himself. Maybe this isn't unusual. But as the misty images faded, Shadowpaw saw that the other medicine cats were staring at one another, shocked and unnerved. "Has this happened before?" he asked, striving to stop his voice from squeaking like a terrified kid. Crystalflight shook his head. "I've never seen anything like that before," he replied. "I've never even heard of it. Not from any cat." The other medicine cats murmured in agreement. "What does it mean?" Shadowpaw asked. "It can't be good, right?" "I wouldn't worry about it." Puddleshine pressed his muzzle briefly into Shadowpaw's shoulder, a comforting gesture. "Maybe it's because the moon pool is freezing over. Once it thaws, the StarClan cats will be stronger presences again." Shadowpaw wished he could believe his mentor, but the other medicine cats were exchanging doubtful looks. He wasn't sure that even Puddleshine believed what he had and seemed ready to talk about what had happened. He had just headed back up to the slope and out of the hollow, then said their farewells. Padding at Puddleshine's side on the way back to StarClan, Shadowpaw still felt a little worried tingle in his fur. If this has never happened before, why is it happening now? What does it mean? Turning to Puddleshine, he opened his jaws and began, "What do you—" But Puddleshine's expressions had grown somehow remote as he was turned on to himself in thought. Shadowpaw didn't know why, but he got the sense that this wasn't the time to bother his mentor with an apprentice's questions. Remembering the cloudy shapes and the distant voices, Shadowpaw felt a dark cloud hovering over him and all the clans, as if a devastating storm was about to unleash itself. Once again, he tried to tell himself that he was just anxious, that he didn't have the others' experiences. He just needed time to get used to it. Surely that's all it is, right? The end.